Welcome back to another episode of Hachi with Us. We have a special guest here, Sulaiman.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Sulaiman. I'm quite big on Twitter, so I do a lot of journalism, a lot of research on a wide range of issues, whether it's like feminism, conservatism, liberalism, obviously the Middle East politics, US politics, UK politics, and recently also it was India and Pakistan politics. And yeah, generally I'm big on X in terms of tweeting and then Twitter spaces as well. And then we're expanding onto other shows as well. So yeah, that's basically me.
All right. You are. Amazing. Excellent. So usually at the beginning of our episodes, we like to start with the word of the day or just a fun word. But since we have you here today, we're going to take it on a little serious note and we're going to make the word of the day silence. So how does the word...
So you're proving that you're teachers, isn't it?
Right? Yes, exactly.
We have to cross our legs and put our finger up as well.
Literally. So I feel like a lot of us have been silent for a long time. Silence.
I think the whole world has been silent.
Silence in the boardrooms, silence in our living rooms, silence with our friends on social medias. How does the word silence make you feel?
Well, I think it's an important word, right? Because you can use it in a wide range of contexts. So if you look at like silence, many of us have been silenced based on our political opinion. If you look at myself, I'm on X, I'm probably the most silenced person on X. So about a year ago, I was the most viral person by far in terms of social media engagement. I think I was like top 3 in the whole world on all accounts. And then there was an attack against me by a wide range of groups. I won't go too much into detail. Don't want your podcast to get cancelled, but basically, or silenced.
Silenced, exactly.
Yeah, but so there's a wide range of attacks on me, and then I got deboosted significantly, and then I got my blue check mark taken away. And then recently I was banned in India. So I think like when it comes to silence, I'm probably one of the biggest silence. The Israelis put my name on a missile.
No way.
Hold on, you're lying.
Yeah. But the issue was that there was 2 things that came to my mind at the time. First thing is you think like, obviously, because remember you're entrenched in the whole situation. Yes. So you're thinking these bombs are going to kill women and children. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is obviously if anybody knows this Israeli psychology, it's a form of a death threat as well. So like when you consider those, you think, well, I'm not that bothered about the death threat, but basically that same missile, there's a high likelihood it's going to kill someone. And so that bit annoys you.
Yeah, that's...
And it wasn't just myself. Then they put Tate on there, they put Sneak on there, they put Cenk on there. So they put a few people on there.
Oh, wow, that is crazy. So what first drew you to investigate journalism and to be a political commentator?
Well, I only started in like 2023.
Okay.
In terms of X. And to be honest, like I've always had this skill where I know what thing is going to get the highest level of engagement. Yeah. Generally speaking, I know how to blow up on issues. It's just about understanding the psyche and the zeitgeist and so on and so forth. So at that first point was obviously Andrew Tate. And with Andrew Tate, the issue is everybody was against him at that time. And like nobody was on his side except his fans.
Right.
And his fans obviously had the support, but maybe they didn't have the like analytical skills or the bits of analyzing information. So I thought like, wait a sec, this is like, first of all, I think he's innocent. So there's a good way of proving that's a good thing. So always the truth is the most important thing. And then the second thing was I thought, wait, what's like the easy way of blowing up is if I basically tackle the issue and just look at the media propaganda and break it down. So all I was doing just writing threads and breaking it down, and they were just blowing up.
Pissing people off.
Exactly, that's it. So they were just blowing up, and then so I got a huge amount of followers straight away. And I think I'm that type of. I'm glad I did because I don't know if I would have continued if there was like a slow increase. And so I blew up on that, and so that's what got me into it. Or really before that, obviously, I mentioned I was like an academic. I was a teacher. I had an MA in philosophy, degree in maths and law. So my background was academia. I always knew that I was able to like present ideas. And my main thought was always to like give people alternative ideas, alternative positions. and then defend like people on a humanitarian perspective, which I'm guessing we're going to talk about later, but also as well defend Muslims, because if you look at it, there's this massive wide-scale attack over the last 20 years against the Muslim community. And I always thought we didn't really have anyone who's able to dispel them positions. Whoever we have, generally speaking, are part of a certain group, and they'll do it to advance the benefits of their own group as opposed to the whole. And so then those were my psychological reasons why I wanted to do it. And so then that's how I blew up, essentially.
So speaking of like now more engagement with the Muslim community, we obviously all grew up past the post 9/11 era. And the way that the West viewed Muslims as terrorists and, you know, just everything bad. What do you think about how the West views us now after everyone's being open and not so silent about what the genocide?
Slowly, a lot of people are starting to speak up. I mean, we have like artists, and they're starting to finally speak up about what's going on, the genocide.
Yeah, for sure. And to be honest, when you look at the narrative about Muslims changing, I mean, I don't want to like have delusions of grandeur, but I do think I was quite a large part in that. So if you look on X, because you know with X, it's like in my view, the most important platform, because it's mainly people who impact society who are on there. And so when you're able to let people know the truth or create a narrative or create a situation or create an idea, and if people start taking them ideas and thoughts in, it ends up impacting the zeitgeist, and then and things do change. And so like very early on, I remember it was about May, June time, I started speaking about this idea of like a Christian-Muslim alliance, and then various big people start speaking about it, like Andrew Tate started speaking about it, Sneeko, Nick Fuentes, various other people who are banned as well were speaking about it. And what it did was it made people see Muslims in a different light, because then they start saying, wait a sec, when you look at it, Muslims and Christians are kind of in a very similar situation.
Similar, exactly.
They're in a similar situation and they have similar views. So if you look at it, they both respect Jesus, they all both respect Mary, they have different, very similar ideas and thoughts. They both are being attacked in current times. And so when people understood that, the kind of perspective changed, and then people start opening up. And it was like, wait a second, now you got, because I do believe like Christians are being attacked as well right now.
Yeah, of course.
And as are the white community, and as have the black community previously. So now these attacks are happening. You're able to explain and say, actually, that was happening to Muslims, in the sense of when you look at much of the NGOs, the lobby groups, the mainstream media, the government, entire policies were created to attack Muslims. Like, for example, your teachers, in the UK, we have something called Prevent. And what that was is essentially, I think you may have it here as well, I'm not sure. But basically in the UK, you have something called Prevent, which is that if a teacher saw a student and they thought, wait a sec, this student is being a bit too extreme. And by extreme, they mean having religious values, traditional conservative values.
Sounds familiar.
They can basically report the child, and then you can lose your child. And so these were the kind of measures that we've been put in place to attack Muslims. In reality, what that actually did in the UK was destroy the Christian community. And because what happened in the UK was the right wing people like Tommy Robinson, who was meant to debate me before he went into prison.
Where are you at now?
Well, he's come out today, so
oh wow.
Hope he still stands by his debate. But basically, the decision's been made for him to be released. I think he's going to be released in a week or so. But coming back to the point, what happened in the UK was there was this attack happened in the US as well. But
the riot.
Sorry?
So you're talking about the riot?
Yeah, the riots happened last year.
Oh, okay.
And I'll talk about them as well.
Yeah.
But basically in the UK, from September the 11th, you basically had it where there was an attack on Muslims. These guys are bad. These guys are evil. They don't respect women. They're horrific to LGBTQ. They don't respect anyone. They're extreme. They're violent. And then they put measures in, like I said, through Prevent. The media starts saying all these things. And what actually happened was Islam was a representation of conservative values, because the things they attacked about Islam was conservative values. A defined family, men and women being together, children, family, a family unit, respecting God, loving God, believing in God, having a large family. And so what happened in the anti-feminism, and so what happened in the West was they start demonstrating this is evil, and anything that opposes this is good. And so what you saw in the UK as an example was the opposite happening. Muslims end up, because Muslims are actually quite faithful, they don't end up losing their religion very easily. What actually then happened is Christians lost their religion. So in 10 years, from 2011 to 2021, Christianity fell from 75% to 45% in the UK. Wow. A drop of 30%.
Big drop.
It's a huge drop. Now, the propaganda says it's because there's a Muslim takeover. But actually, in those 10 years, Islam only increased by 1%.
Converted.
Wow.
Not just in terms of like, it could be immigration, birth rate, some of it's conversion, but only increased by 1%. So 30% dropped. And that change happened to atheism. So all of them became atheists, or the large proportion of them. So, and in reality, because the reason I'm mentioning about the Muslim thing is because linked to your rights thing, which is that, they've had this attack against Muslims. They make it look like there's a huge amount of Muslim immigration. But if you look in the West, there's actually not Muslim immigration. That's actually fake news. UK, the vast majority of immigration is Indian. 1 million Indians that come in. The biggest foreign birth is Indian. Second is Chinese. Third is Nigerian. Australia, the biggest immigration is Indian. Canada, the biggest immigration is Indian. Australia, New Zealand, United States of America, Indian is second after Mexican. So there isn't this whole thing about a Muslim invasion is entirely fake, but they created this propaganda. And they did it through various NGO groups. So for example, there's an NGO, there's a guy called Douglas Murray. Have you heard of him? He's like a British guy. He's popped up. He's anti-Islam. And basically Douglas Murray was part of a group called the Henry Jackson Society. The Henry Jackson Society was basically funded by Jewish Zionist billionaires. And their whole goal was to demonize Islam and Muslims. So these are the ways that they did it. So on X, like I'm proud of the fact that we basically disrupted, destroyed, and debunked a lot of this thing against Muslims. And now if you look at it, things have changed. October the 7th accelerated it. And because October the 7th, what happened was they lied a lot about October the 7th. And we'll talk about that. But I was like Max Blumenthal, various others were actually one of the main people debunking a lot of the things on October the 7th.
I love that. Well done.
But yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
So like you were saying, like how, anti-Muslim was spreading everywhere. Even in schools in Canada, there was situations and incidents where, they came, what do we call it in Canada? The CPS,
Child
CPS, Child Protective Services, where, I think it was Ramadan, and the student, or it was during like Pride or something. He didn't want to be part of the parade. And then they, turned it into this whole like, because he's Muslim and, your family's this. And they came and they actually took him away. And it was just like this big thing in Canada. So
it's exactly the same. And if you look at Canada, the same thing. Destruction of religion, destruction of the white race is all happening because of that.
Just break it down.
Like we thought in our time growing up, it was, we had racism and all that. But now I feel like it's way more worse.
Well, now it's different because I don't think it's specifically against Muslims.
Not racism,
Yeah. What's happened now, in my view, is you basically got the black community, you got the white community, you got Muslims, and then you've got Jewish Zionists, and then obviously you got Jews who are anti-Zionist, but they don't really fall into the picture as much. They're just called capos by the Jewish Zionists. But basically these groups, all of them, what the people in power have done is cause hatred amongst them. And what they do is, so you talk about the riots. So we had like 3 riots. In the 2000s, you had riots between the blacks and whites. In the early 2010s, it was between Muslims and Bradford riots, which was mainly between Muslims and white people. And then recently you had the riots as well, which again was against Muslims and the working and white class. And so in reality, the far right. And so in reality, the reason they do is they cause division. So they intentionally cause racial hatred. And the reason they do is because they just want working class people to fight amongst each other while they control, and nobody looks at them. So the corporations, Silicon Valley, big tech, all of them continue to have power, which they continue to do.
How do you balance digital activism, with safety concerns? You said like, the Israelis have death threats against you. And I'm sure in the UK, a lot of people, know of you. So how do you deal with safety
It's a good
concerns?
question. Like a lot of it, I just don't let it bother me. But what I do is when I travel, I don't let anybody know I'm traveling, generally speaking. So most situations, people don't know which like country I'm at, unless I'm in a podcast.
Right.
So generally when I'm in a podcast, then they'll know, but then they won't know when I'm traveling or when I'm leaving or my exact location. So that's like one of the steps I take. And generally I'm like rarely in one place as well. So I think those are the main things I do. But it is concerning. So I have in my back of my mind, like which countries I wouldn't travel to for that reason.
Yeah, that's scary.
So
you don't know who's watching you, who's stalking you, who's...
like I'm very confident they've tapped my phones.
For sure. You gotta be careful.
How does your family and friends like feel about that? Like, are they supportive? Are they...
Yeah, they're extremely supportive. Obviously, mum's being mum. Mum's always
Yeah,
stressed,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, worried
I can't
about
imagine.
you.
but everybody else is fine.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they're proud when they see you like debating on these political like stances and not being silent and
Yeah. Actually, my mum is like the most critical. So she'll be like, "Yeah, you did really good, but you were a bit too mean there." And I'm like, "I don't care. Like, you got to smash the
yeah, exactly. You have to. And another thing, just I want to know your view on like people like Charles Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, them speaking out and like when they first had like their opinion was not pro-Palestine, it was very, very opposite. And now they're out speaking pro-Palestine and standing with everybody. Do you believe that that's genuine, or are they just trying to follow the clout?
So they're both different situations. So with Candace Owens, I never used to like her because she was anti-Islam, right?
Like very,
But I think what's happened is she's grown, she's matured, she's learned a lot. And she even apologized very recently to the Muslim community about what happened. So I do believe she's genuine. And remember, she's a Catholic. And you have to remember, irrespective of what happened October the 7th, which is horrific and horrendous, Catholics and Jews have had beef for like 2,000 years, right? Sure. So in reality, there's always this issue that's always going to happen. Now, I'm not saying she's anti-Jewish, but I'm saying that'll have played a part because then she's realized that actually Zionists have been creating a lot of this narrative against Muslims, and in reality, a lot of it isn't. So I think with Candace Owens, it is a legitimate. With Tucker Carlson, it's a bit more of a complex situation. Because with Tucker, you can tell there are certain points that he makes that are valid, but then there are other points that are highly problematic. And we remember Tucker Carlson's background. His father was intelligence. And so I always have a question mark over people whose fathers or parents or they're part of an intelligence background. Because normally how it works is when you're part of an intelligence background or you're part of a political background, you kind of follow the same footsteps. So maybe he went against the grain, but then that's something you can't forget. And so when you look at the fact that, for example, he'll say, "Oh, Britain's fallen." Well, Britain hasn't really fallen. That's part of the propaganda. But maybe he just doesn't know. But then when he talks about, for example, issues that we're not allowed to talk about or wouldn't be in the mainstream if it wasn't for him, for example, the Epstein client list, or for example, Israel being part of 9/11, or for example, them being behind the killing of JFK, RFK, and various others. So when he speaks about those things, then you think, okay, there's some credibility to that he has taken a risk because his audience is largely right-wing MAGA, and those in the United States are very much Zionist. So the fact that he's speaking out, so that bit gives credit. But I think with both of them, there's two different situations.
Approaches,
But like I said, like I think a lot of people are now starting to realize that obviously, the truth comes out. You can't hide the truth with Israel saying so many lies about, babies dead and rape and all that. And
you got to know your history though. I feel
and also like the hostages are coming out and, they're completely saying opposite of what Israel is portraying. And so I think people are starting to wake up.
Well, I think that was the biggest thing because when they start making lies up about the 40 beheaded babies, and we actually were the biggest ones who debunked it, but they wanted to...
That's amazing. Wow.
That's
so amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm like quite proud of. I think I did like a five and a half hour podcast with Myron, from Fresh and Fit. And we did I broke all of it down in terms of all the fake news and the propaganda about it. But the reason they created that narrative was because they wanted to use it. And remember, they said they want to turn Gaza into a parking lot. They want to destroy it. And so when we debunked it, it was huge. But not only that, they lied about rape. They lied about mass rape. They lied about every single thing related to that. They didn't talk about the fact that Israel killed its own people. They didn't talk about the fact that the Palestinian resistance really did a military operation and they weren't targeting civilians. So when all of that was debunked, I think it exposed them significantly. But then what you saw was a massive controlling of the narrative after that. And the way they did it was they basically ensured that the only people they had on media who were pro-Palestine were people who accept the lies about October the 7th. And so that way they're able to control and shape the narrative. So they're doing that right now. So this is why I have an issue with people like Dave Smith, who is Jewish but anti-Zionist. Like I respect him for being pro-Palestine. But if you look at it, he concedes the things about October the 7th. He concedes, which is fake news. And what that does is give them a pretext or gives them people acceptance that, okay, they had to do something. Which is not. Exactly. And so with him, like why I have an issue is he accepts those, he creates that narrative. He agrees about Islam being extreme when it's not in reality. If you look at it, Islam is the most peaceful religion.
Exactly.
So when you look at all those things, there is question marks about like the way the narrative is being controlled again.
So it's talking about people speaking up. I'm sure you've heard the news about how France, Canada, the UK are now apparently saying that they don't condemn what Israel is doing and they're going to do something about it.
They're putting sanctions on.
Sanctions and all that. Do you believe, I mean, I've heard so many times or seen that, Canada or the States or whatever is against it, but do you believe they can do anything?
It's an interesting point because are they going to put sanctions? I don't think so. I do believe, so there's a bit of a complex one here, but I do believe that something's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And for the good?
Something is cooking, but what is it?
So what is it? This is my opinion. So if you look at it, about a year ago, Elon Musk and the Trump administration, where they're talking about US aid being removed. Yes. So what is US aid? So they made US aid look like the bad guy. And I agree with them, it is bad, right? Because what US aid was used for was control over other countries. So when they said that we've given 20 million to Iraq for Sesame Street, they never really gave 20 million for Sesame Street. They gave it to Iraq so they can control what's happening there. And so when they gave 20 million to Mozambique, where they said it was for condoms, it wasn't really, it was for control in Mozambique. If you look at when the money was given to Venezuela, the opposition, it was control. So what the US did was used US aid to control many nations.
They just make it sound
exactly
better.
But then they've removed that, which means you're removing the US control over these countries. So it weakens the US.
True.
Also, the recent tariffs. So if you look at the tariffs, the reason the US always needs a trade deficit, the fact that the US is talking about the fact that they want to remove a trade deficit and remove the tariffs means that essentially what you're trying to say is that they don't want US to be the most powerful country anymore.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, and that does seem to be maybe the case, then what the aim is for those in power is to weaken the United States and make it so that the US, the Gulf states, which is Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, as well as China and possibly India, as long as they don't have that war with Pakistan, to be the new superpowers and equal superpowers. So it seems like that's what's really happening.
Okay. You said you went viral for Andrew Tate, the thread, and making him out to seem innocent. Making him innocent. Why?
Proving that he's innocent.
Why did you prove his innocent? Why did you want to tackle that?
Yeah, why Tate?
The main reason was because I never trust the mainstream media about anything whatsoever. And I've never trusted them. If you look at all the issues in the past, whether it's COVID, whether it's the Russia-Ukraine war, whether it's the fake weapons of mass destructions in Iraq, whatever it is, you can never trust the mainstream media. So to be honest, I didn't know Tate, but as soon as the media said it, I was like, they're probably lying.
Let me investigate.
Yeah, so then I was like, let me look into it. And so when I looked into it, the allegations seemed extremely weak. And so that was the basis by which I tackled it.
Yeah.
And so now my rule is always anything the media says, you got to watch and find out. And same with social media now, because if you look at social media, a lot of the accounts that are big are either extreme right-wing accounts or extreme left-wing accounts. And so a lot of times they're perpetuating propaganda, they're perpetuating certain narratives. And so therefore, as soon as they say something, likely it's going to be fake. So all you do is just do quick research and then you debunk it. And what people want is they want someone to basically break those down for them. And so that's what helped me become viral. So just finding a gap in the market because not many people were doing that.
Did he end up reaching out to you, or did you reach out to him after you went through your whole investigation?
It's still ongoing, the Tate stuff, right? Because he's still being investigated in Romania.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's so I believe he's in Dubai, but then he goes back to Romania once whenever he needs to sign or whatever. So that case is still ongoing.
So you're a Tate fan, huh?
No, I'm not a Tate fan. That's the irony.
I'm not. I am, and I'm not either.
No. So because I agreed with him about his issue about feminism.
Yeah, so I do want to talk about that. Yeah.
But then on the other hand, I've been on the opposite side of on almost every single issue, whether it's the UK riots,
yes.
whether it's the
stance on Gaza.
No, his stance on Gaza was anti-Israel, wasn't it? So we had the same position on the anti-Israel.
Yeah. Oh, okay, so you're saying things that you disagree with.
Yeah, which I disagree with is probably the UK riots. There was a Germany situation where they blame the Muslims. I was on the other side of him. So if you look at the vast majority of political issues, especially over the last year and a half, 2 years, I've actually been on the opposite side of Tate. So it's not like that. So if you look at my research in terms of that specific case, it wasn't based on the fact of being a Tate fan.
And it's nice to sometimes have different arguments and debates. It's not always, to have friends that disagree. It's okay. You have to learn to coexist with.
Yeah, look, I'm a big believer in like free speech anyway.
Yeah,
because,
for sure.
And the reason I am is, to be honest, and I think I'm one of the few who's actually real free speech absolutist, because the right wing for a very long time, both in the United States and the UK, always claimed that they believed in free speech.
Yeah.
And now that they have the power, they're silencing speech
that.
significantly.
Like, yeah.
In the US, you see it with the college students being arrested. Basically, people like Mahmoud Khalil, Rumaisa Oztak, who literally have done nothing. Rumaisa literally just wrote an op-ed. She got rounded up and she's about to be deported. Mahmoud Khalil did nothing except be a negotiator because the university and the student body wanted him to. And he's being rounded up and deported. So they definitely don't believe in free speech. And just yesterday, Gary Lineker got fired. He's like a well-respected footballing icon.
So many people,
just for being pro-Palestine. So these guys don't believe in free speech whatsoever. But the reason I believe in it is because I'm like, to be honest, I think my ideas are extremely strong. So I don't mind debating them because I think my ideas will win out.
Confident about it. Yeah. So just like you said, like our word silent, and they are silencing everyone. I mean, look at Ben Cohen.
Yeah, they just arrested
arrested him. And everyone was saying like, let's support Ben and Jerry's. And I'm like, no, we need to do our research. Ben and Jerry's is not owned by him anymore.
Yeah.
It is, he's
the original co-founder.
Yeah. I think, who was it? Aliver bought it, and they openly support Israel and all that.
Yeah.
So they're just silencing everyone. They're firing everyone. And free speech doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't.
No. It doesn't exist anywhere.
But it's important it exists because like we're very confident in our ideas.
Yeah.
So it's important that we're able to relay them. It's only through free speech we're able to relay our ideas.
Exactly. However, even some Muslims are not speaking.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We have a group of people that are so loud and, always out there, always on their socials, always promoting and being loud. And I said that a few times, but I feel like the more that we're losing education and people are not getting their knowledge in or learning or reading about things, you also lose your faith too. Maybe I just want to know what you think about that.
Yeah. So like, I basically don't believe in this idea of one ummah. Because they've demonstrated that they don't believe in it.
No.
It's all fake. It's a facade. Because if you look at Palestine, the vast majority of countries didn't speak out for him. If you look at the situation that happened, hardly any country did. And like recently, right? So my origins are Pakistani. So my grandparents are from Pakistan. So if you look at the recent Pakistan-India situation, right? So obviously I thought Pakistan's in the right in that situation. But what they demonstrated is Pakistan have the warplanes and the firepower to attack anyone. Right? So why did they not attack Israel? Well, the reason they didn't attack Israel is because of geopolitical reasons, because they're looking out for their own country's interest. They know that if they attack, maybe India will attack them, Israel will attack them. But then that disproves this whole idea of one ummah, right? Because you're looking out for your national interest. So if you look at all the countries across the board, other than maybe you say Iran, but now even Iran stood down, you'd say Hezbollah's have got an agreement now in terms of a ceasefire agreement. Nobody stood up. So where's this whole one ummah? It's fake.
This is the one thing that I don't understand. Like, I don't want to mention names, but a lot of the Muslim countries, how are they quiet? I don't understand. It makes me angry. I don't get it. Like, why do you think, I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but why do you think they're silent? Like,
they're silent because of their own national interests.
Their own interests.
So if you look at every country, they've got some form of deal with Israel or with the United States of America.
I think it's just all business.
Exactly. Money talks, right? So that's the reality of why a lot of them are silent, which is highly problematic. If you look at it, it was only the Yemeni Houthis who literally stood up against them. And the Yemeni Houthis not only stood against them, they basically smashed them because about a month ago, so it's just been released by the New York Times a few days ago that that America decided to bomb the Yemeni Houthis. In 1 month, they spent $1 billion. The Houthis took out a significant amount of drones. They almost took out an F-16 and an F-35. So the situation was so bad that the Houthis reached out to the US and said, look, we're giving you a chance for a peace. But it needs to be without Israel. And then Trump agreed. So that was one of the first times that the US administration directly did a deal with the Houthis or any kind of these organizations, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, directly for peace, which doesn't include Israel. So I think that was like demonstrating that if you actually do something, it demonstrates if you do something that you can actually achieve.
Exactly. I always I'm like, I wonder if we all just came together.
Exactly.
Just,
like, how can we
come together and just freaking
that's my next
go
one
in
is
there ourselves.
How can everyday people build unity beyond, like, with the political, like how,
because like we
I feel like
completely
we're
failed.
yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know what you think what's going to happen next in Palestine, but the way that things are going and what we're seeing, it's just never ending.
Like
sure,
how
we're
can
all
we go
talking about it.
beyond?
I think the biggest issue, in my view, you're talking about within Muslims, right?
Yeah.
So I think the biggest issue, in my view, in amongst Muslims is sectarianism, right? So what Muslims do is they'll fall into a specific sect. They'll fall into a specific group within the sect, and then they'll follow anyone who's a leader within that sect. And even if it goes against the Muslim interest or goes against maybe even like fundamental humanity or basics of understanding of what should happen. And so, like, for example, if it's a Salafi, he'll follow his Salafi. If it's a Deobandi, he'll follow his Deobandi. If it's a Brelvi, he'll follow Brelvi. If it's a Shia, they'll follow the
So
Shia.
what happens if we just follow the
puppets.
Quran?
But this is the issue. And so this is why, if you look at a lot of our classical books, one of the things they always said is like, what's impermissible is taqleed, which is blind following. And yet we have these people who blindly follow the leaders. Exactly. So they blindly follow the leaders or their group, and then they're willing to go against something that harms. So as an example, I know this may be controversial, but I was against the rebellion in Syria. And the reason I was against it is because if you look at the classical books within Islam, what they say is rebellion is not allowed. And the reason it's not allowed is because the claim is that more people will be suffering and dying after the rebellion than before. And that's what happened in the Syrian rebellion. And yet you had people, just because they were part of a certain group, then supported that. And so this is and now if you look at it, if you look at Syria, they're looking at normalizing with Israel. And so that, in my view, has harmed the situation.
Okay.
So I think that's the major issue. It's sectarianism, it's blind following, it's not going back to the fundamentals of the religion, and it's not seeing Muslims as one. There's a lot of, within Muslims, and it's just, there's a lot of racism, there's a hierarchy, there's like division. So I think those are the major issues, but it's caused a lot of times by religious people.
Which is also another sign of Day of Judgment.
Well, subhanAllah, so it's not funny, but I mean, like, it's the irony. So I often ask myself, I'm like, like just between me and myself, if there is a God, if there is a higher power. Yeah, no, it's by the way, it's okay to ask these questions.
Of course it is.
How else are you going to learn without asking the blunt, straightforward questions? Then why are children dying? Why is this happening? That's the same question that everyone...
It's hard, because we always like...
But then,
that.
the whole... correct me if I'm wrong. I guess we're put to a test to see how strong our faith is, how strong our ummah is, so I feel like we completely failed that part, and like no one's coming together or making, like, how do I say?
Yeah, so I agree with you. So like, there's 2 points. The first thing is when you said asking the question, actually that's the fundamental of belief, to ask that question.
See?
Because
we always...
I always in like Islamic
question.
theology, the position is that if you only believe because your parents are Muslim, it's not really belief.
Exactly.
You're not actually considered a believer. So the real thing is to like question these things and then come to a concrete belief yourself.
Of course.
So I vehemently agree with you that there's no issue with asking the question because you're strengthening your understanding. The second point is in terms of what you said. Actually, funny enough, my PhD thesis was on free will before I became big on social media. And the reason there's pain and suffering in the world is solely based on free will. Because there's 2 options. Either you have no free will, free choice, and therefore you're going to be a puppet. And you're going to be basically like the angel who just worships because he's told to worship. Or you're going to have a choice between doing good or evil. But as soon as you have a choice for good, you have a choice for evil. And so the world then ends up having both, which is good and evil, which is the absence of good. And when that happens is why you see children suffering, why you see this pain, because what will happen is someone like Netanyahu has free will and he's chosen evil and he's chosen to bomb them. So everything in the universe is based on free will. So of course there is evil in the world, but that's a byproduct of free will.
I just wonder, like, are we gonna get like punished for not? Like, what are we meant to do? Like, the questions that you ask yourself when you see these videos.
At this
it's
point,
like, imagine like we have to face Rabbil Alameen, and what if he's like, well, what did you do? You shared a post? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, but anything you do is important. And to be honest, you have to stand up. It's like, for example, a lot of times when I'm in a situation, I think like I might do something, it could get me cancelled, or I might do something, it might cause me harm. I might get, like, for example, I got demonetized on X recently for that reason, which had a significant impact. But then you think, look, like at the end of the day, once you realize that this world's temporary, and you got to do the right thing at all times. And B, that's why you want to be ethical, but also B, I want to leave like a landmark. I don't want to come to the world and leave the world and have no impact. Because then
like what a sad,
what use
point?
are you?
Yeah.
You could have just, you just could have existed and not existed.
Seriously.
And so my whole goal is always to have like an impact on the world.
Exactly. And that's also like a lot of people ask us, like, you know, when it happened, like, you know, stop posting, like post a little bit, you know, just be careful, your work, your this. And I'm like, no, I mean, it's humanity. Well, I look at it as like when I'm scrolling, I just put my life in there, like my kids. How can you stay quiet? Like it's not something about your work or whatever. It's humanity. That's why I'm like, it's frustrating how nothing is happening.
Was there a time where you seen like a post or a video or heard a scream or, you know, that sparked your anger to get you to start being vocal and loud about the war on Gaza? Like, so was there a specific?
No, I was the first person. That's the reason I blew up, because the big part of when I blew up even more, so I had like 100,000 followers. The reason I blew up significantly on X in terms of numbers and Spaces is like a social audio platform, and I'm literally the biggest on X when it comes to organic following. And so the reason is because I was literally on day one. So as soon as I realized, like, wait a sec, what's going on? They're using this as an excuse to commit a genocide. I realized what the plan was, that they were going to try and kill as many people in Gaza as possible. I was the very first person.
Sorry to cut you off. Were you already on this topic, or have you, how would you know? How did you know?
Yeah. So obviously I was aware of the situation in Palestine, like as we all were. But what happened was we were actually doing a space at the time, breaking the news down of what was happening on October the 7th. And when I was hearing a lot of the Zionists and Israelis speak, it was clicking on my mind, like what was really going on. And so then I thought, wait a sec, they're planning to gas Gaza, destroy Gaza, you know, turn it into a parking lot. So once I realized that, because they were literally saying on that day one, oh, but this is a good enough reason to turn it into a parking lot. So once I realized that, I straight away jumped onto my page and was start posting from October the 7th. So I was like from day one posting. So
well, I do want to say that online and in your videos, you do carry yourself, you know, in a very respectful, strong manner, never seem unbroken.
Well, not always respectful.
Well,
I think the Zios know that. I'll insult them.
It depends.
It depends on the situation.
Depends on the situation.
Because I don't want to get fake praise. Because what it is like, my rule is always this. I'll be academic with the person who's academic.
Right.
And then I'm from a socially economic deprived background. I'm from the ends. So I'll insult if I need to insult.
No, fair enough.
So it just depends.
I mean, is there ever a time where you break, like behind the camera?
Oh, that was the question you said. That's important.
Did I already ask that?
I'd say the situation that hit me the worst. It's about but anyway, the situation that hit me the worst was one of my friends. He went to Gaza very recently during the ceasefire. He's a doctor. And he was working in the hospital that they just bombed a few days ago. I think about 4 or 5 days ago. And some of the stories he was telling us was shocking. Like, I think everybody was in tears. He was talking about how, for example, it was so bad. Like, people are just, like, he was just seeing people being shot in the head, direct assassinations. And he said, like, the situation is so bad that, like, as a doctor, he's not trained like this, but you'd think that it's actually better for some of these people to die than actually live. That's how bad the situation is. And so that for me was horrific. And you can see it impacted him significantly. He had PTSD and it was really bad. And remember, these are people who are doctors who are in the trauma unit. And yet this was just unfathomable. And the way he described it was horrific. It was like really hard to contend with.
I mean, us seeing it is very like
no, we watch horror movies and we're like, oh, like, you know, we can't look. And this is a real life horror movie playing in front of these people that are not trained for this type of, like, nobody's ready to see this kinds of things. So
we also have like a friend he's a nurse who went and during, you know, October 7th and all that. He was there in Gaza in the hospitals, and he was saying how they literally have to choose who to treat, you know, if it's someone that's you know, they know that's they will let him go, you know, and it's just so like how, I don't even know how they can.
That's the strength that God gives them.
Yeah, like they have to choose who lives and who they have to let go. It's just.
You think about it like, what if that was your kid? What would you would be screaming at everybody, like, you know, help me, wake up.
Exactly.
You'd resist,
What do you do? Wow. Yeah, that's sad.
My next question is, what do you want like young Muslims or the youth to, you know, to get from the truth and from social media and all that? Like what advice would you give them?
I would say the most important advice is not to fall into like a religious sect, because they really do just commandeer your mind.
So coming from like somebody who studied religion, like I like to hear that.
Yeah. But I mean, I studied religion and then I didn't fall into any sect, and I didn't fall into any group. And I think if you study advanced enough, you'll realize that this is just like very low IQ people or young people, or not even young people who have not delved into it deep enough, get easily controlled, and they think that everything in the religion is black and white when there's a lot of complexities to it, and issues have developed over time through history, through culture, and certain things got incorporated, removed, and so on and so forth. But what I'd say to young Muslims is that, and then to understand from a geopolitical perspective or from a political perspective the reality of what's going on, and then to try and make a difference, like do good, be a good presentation of a Muslim, have the best ethics, morals, and then to basically present those and have a good pushback and understand that you put in the world first. Don't be like self-centric, but be like world-centric.
Don't be a follower, don't be a puppet.
Exactly.
Do your research.
Follow your one God, one book. That's it.
Exactly.
Read it, learn it, understand it.
For sure.
Beautiful religion. 10 years ago, so you 10 years ago, could you, like, would he recognize who you are today?
Yeah. Because 10 years ago...
He's like, I've always been in this.
Because 10 years ago, I was very similar, but mainly talking about things from a religious perspective.
Okay.
So like if you look at a lot of the art, I did talk about some political issues. Like for example, I talked about the population collapse, which I was literally the first person to talk about it 10, 15 years ago. Now everybody else talks about it. But I talked about things more from a religious perspective. So for example, from a theology perspective, or for example, I wrote articles about, for example, there was a Christian woman who got like oppressed in Pakistan. So I wrote about her from a religious perspective, but also from a geopolitical perspective.
So you're always into this kind
in that regard. But that was like more, I used to just write articles for fun or write like books for fun. But like now it's more like, it's kind of like a career.
Yeah. I guess things got crazier too.
We definitely need people like you, more people like you.
So like just to speak, not be afraid, not feel
not
like...
only to speak, to dive in and get the truth out. Like you said, social media is so fake. And even with the whole Andrew Tate thing, like in the beginning, I was like, oh, I hate him. Like, you know?
Well, Andrew Tate's gone through a bit of a journey, hasn't he? Because he was hated, then he was liked, and now he's disliked again. So it's like, you know.
I think he was only hated just because of the things he says about women.
Same with, for example, what's his name? Dan.
Do you agree with that?
Bilzerian.
We could talk about that. But Dan Bilzerian. Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. Also in the beginning, I'm just like,
what was the switch? Like, little do you know, hey, he can have booties all around, but he still stands with the right cause.
Like even, for example, Miss Rachel, it's all about if you stand for humanity.
Miss Rachel.
Like, with Dan Bilzerian, he's actually a genuine guy. He's lost he lost about 800 million since
even his company as well, right?
He got removed from his company.
Since he spoke out.
He got removed as from his own company. Ignite. And then he created a new company, which I forget the name of it. And then the new company, the Canadians have basically, government has said that he's not allowed to have his new company or use his own likeness. He lost $800 million.
That's insane.
And if you look at him, he went on Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan was just screaming at him, calling him an anti-Semite, which demonstrates the way they basically control the narrative. Because someone like Piers Morgan will have on Douglas Murray, Gard Saad, Jordan Peterson, who will regularly attack Muslims, and he'll get zero pushback. And yet Dan Bilzerian questions Judaism or Jewish people, and he gets attacked throughout. Or you've got, like, for example, he'll platform Tommy Robinson, but then he won't platform us who can push back on him. And me and Tommy Robinson were meant to debate before he went to prison. So what happened was, I basically challenged, after the UK riots, I basically challenged to debate. He accepted because we've got a lot of mutual friends. So we were going on shows at the same time, saying the opposite situations. So he agreed. We were meant to debate. He was was like, oh no, but then I don't want it online. And I was like, fine, I'll fly to you. And he's like, okay, I can't do it in the US or UK. And I was like, yeah, no problem. I'll come to Europe. I'll come to the Bahamas. I'll go to wherever.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay, I need 2 weeks because I need to see my kids. I was like, no problem. Like, take your family time. No problem. Take your time. Family time.
If you're gonna talk so big on socials, come face me.
But then he got arrested. So I didn't end up debating him.
But he got arrested for it, you know.
Well, he got arrested because basically, this is again some of the right-wing propaganda that goes on social media. So they claim that he got arrested because he pulled out of documentary, and in his documentary, he was exposing what happened with the Syrian kid, right? So they're saying that he's getting censored for journalism, but in reality, that's fake. What actually happened was he lied about this Syrian boy, committed defamation. It went to court. Tommy Robinson presented his ideas and positions. The Syrian boy did the same. Tommy Robinson lost in court. He then basically made sure he didn't pay the boy because he claimed bankruptcy. Part of the court ruling was that you're not allowed to defame the boy anymore. And then he released this video to defame the boy. And so they said you basically broke a court order. So the only reason he's in prison is because he directly lost a legal case and then broke a court order. But if you listen to the right wing, it's like, censorship. When
Oh, wow.
That's deep. That's crazy.
Obviously you speak the truth and you investigate, and are you scared, or, was that a thought in your head that could possibly, maybe they try to silence you by, I don't know, arresting
putting you in jail.
These days, you never know.
Of course.
That is something that I believe may happen or may happen.
Are you not? You're just like, no, I'm going to keep.
Nah, you got to keep doing what you got to do, isn't it? If you go to jail, you go to jail.
See, that's what happens.
But I think there is a high possibility for sure.
Really? Yeah. Wow. But I mean, the truth is the truth.
Part of the reason why I don't like the UK, because there's extreme censorship.
Yeah. Same with obviously now Canada and all the countries that are free speech is now
exactly.
It's completely the opposite. I mean, the whole world's
silent.
Is silent.
Our word of the day.
It is our word of the day.
So we asked
that's what his documentary is called, ironically, as well.
You're doing
Tommy Robinson's one, the fake one you just talked about.
that wasn't a shout out for him.
Yeah, exactly.
We reached out to some of our followers on socials, just wanting to share some stories and just to hear your response on something. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm reconnecting to my faith because this war woke something in me. So obviously there was
honestly, I agree. When it first happened, I mean, I don't follow Islam as I should. I want to pray every day and I want to, but when it did wake us up, and it did, we're like, okay, we have to pray. We have to do something dua.
Is that all in God's plan?
Yes, I believe in free will. Yeah. So when people say God's plan, I don't believe God actually decides and makes things happen in the sense of forces it. It's like a complete free will. But in terms of what you're saying, of course, look, at the end of the day, there's certain events that shake a person, make a person rethink their thoughts and ideas, and then they have that spiritual growth. So yeah, I mean, if something like that has made them do that, then it's extremely important.
All over in the West too. How many people have converted since October 7th? Yeah. People like Karens are out here, standing up for us. People that you would think in America or Canada are
exactly.
Even they don't know much or not educated enough to speak on it, are speaking out. And
there's a large movement back towards religion,
scary,
whether it's Islam or Christianity, for sure.
What it takes for people to wake up.
What's his name? Sean King. Yeah. He was very big and vocal about, Gaza, and he converted. And a lot of people.
Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah.
I used to hide being Muslim. Now I wear it like an armor. Okay, so that kind of...
That's a good point, because what it is what it's linked to what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
That when you had 20 years of the war on terror, which is really the war on Muslims, a lot of people were afraid. And from what I hear, things were really bad in the UK. I presumably saw in Canada, but from what I hear, in US it was even worse, especially if you were from New York.
Oh, it's bad in Canada as well.
It's always been bad, but I believe 9/11 put us on the map, and our mother wears the hijab, and we really saw it and we
like
felt
people would
it.
approach, pull off the scarf, and she
it
just,
was,
you know,
it was
what do we
bad.
do?
Yeah.
So I think that made it extremely hard on Muslims. And so I can see why that happened. But this is, for me, like when you mentioned that, I'm always cognizant of how, when you say certain things, how will impact the Muslim community. This is why I've always had an issue with, you know, some of these like dawah bros from the UK. Because like I was speaking to them and like they always talk about, you know, the Muslim invasion. And then the dawah bros who are like these like religious people from the UK, I'll be like, yeah, bro, we're going to take over the UK. But it's not the truth.
Right.
And so what you do is you basically help towards the hatred towards the Muslims. And what happens is it actually risks our women and children who are walking down the streets.
Exactly.
When in reality, as I mentioned earlier to you, the Muslim, if you look at immigration, the vast majority of immigration is from non-Muslim countries, India, China and Nigeria. And the biggest birth rate in the UK as well is from Indians, which is not other than white. So it's all fake. And so the reason I mentioned that is like, because you mentioned about your mother and how the situation that people had to go through or to live in. This is why I'm extremely cognizant about what you say and how it will impact. I think that's an important thing to do.
100%. Yeah, definitely more proud to be, always proud and blessed to be born Muslim, but definitely wear it like an armor now. Like, you know, like seen our people go through enough. My parents are scared I'll lose everything for speaking up.
Yeah, I mean, look, all parents are like that, right? Because they're extremely protective. So, I mean, look, I understand that. I remember when we were young, right? My mother was always like, oh, look, I want you to fight in the name of Islam when you grow up. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. And then now she's like scared about any little post I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so, so I understand where they're coming from. But in reality, in my view, that the world needs people who are going to be brave. Like there's too many cowards in the world. Too many people afraid of losing their job, their career, which is problematic. But like in my view, like maybe we're going to talk about it later, but like, you know, when people talk about being an alpha male, the real person is that you don't have fear. So let's take Elon Musk as an example. So Elon Musk, if you look at his position immediately after October the 7th, he literally said that it's not a good idea to bomb Palestine or Gaza, because all it's going to do is create more people who are Hamas. Because when you see your mother, your brother, your sister being killed, you're going to want to resist, right? But then they got angry with him. They made him go to Israel. They made him lose his advertisers. They made him go on a Auschwitz tour. They made him go on a Twitter space with Ben Shapiro and the rest of the rabbis. And so what that demonstrated is the world's richest man. The world's richest man
can be controlled too.
Can be controlled
and manipulated.
And he fears he fears losing everything. And so that fear is what makes you into a weak man, and it doesn't make you into a strong man. So money never determines if you're a strong man, it's your mental framework.
Yeah, a lot of people, I mean, not only parents, like a lot of people
that
with
even
jobs
work in
and
the
everything.
media.
I've cut off so many people that didn't
like,
speak up.
Are you still so quiet?
Oh, my job and this and that. I'm just like, no, that's not good enough. Yeah.
Then what's the point of believing in God if you're scared?
Exactly.
One more. I haven't prayed in years. I felt distant from Islam for so long. But watching what's happening in Gaza, it stirred something inside me. I feel pulled back to God, to my people, to something bigger. Just don't know where to start. And then the question
can definitely
they had was, how does faith show up for you in this moment? And what would you say to someone trying to find their way back, not to religion as rules, but as a source of meaning and resistance?
Yeah, it's a good question. So look, there's like two aspects to the religion. Obviously, there's the rules and regulations, whatever it may be. I've always been a big believer that in reality, the most important thing is that spiritual connection with God. Because in reality, if you're just following the rules because they're the rules, then that doesn't make you unique. Because what did God say? Like angels worship better than you. Right. Like it's the quality of what you do. And so in reality, what the aim of life, in my view, is to spiritually connect with God, to basically get into a situation where your soul gets elevated. The way you do that is to stop obviously doing evil, not harming others, doing good unto others, and then spiritually enlightening yourself. I think that's the best way to do it. So it's to become like an extremely good person who does the right things for society. That causes the elevation of the soul. And that's what makes humans unique to, for example, angels or animals, is that, and that's only achieved in my view through the intellect, because it's only through understanding that you're able to do all those things.
100%. 100%. Because there's some Muslims that are Muslims, but they're, not good dealing with people or in their everyday life. So
true. Did you want to talk about the feminism?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So what's your view on women? Just kidding. Do you believe in equality, Sulaiman?
I mean, look, I don't believe in equality. I believe in equity. Like I do.
Oh, sheesh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, because equal means the same, right?
Yeah.
And they're not the same.
They're not the same.
Yeah.
Let's be real. We're never going to be the same. We don't want to be, well, nowadays people. Well, hold up. I'm not speaking for everybody. We don't want to be men. Real men don't want to be women. Like, allow it. Let men do their manly things and let us do our things.
You sound like an anti-feminist there. But anyway, it's quite misogynistic.
but I love you girls.
It's quite misogynistic. But coming back to look, they're different, right? So they're not equal. They're not the same. As you said, they're very different. And to be honest, feminists really, even though they lie about it, they believe it. Hence why they've been attacking the transgender community, right? Because one of the arguments they make against transgender is, wait a sec, why is this a man changing to a woman and then dominating us in sports, right? So then you're clearly demonstrating that there's a biological difference, there's a physiological difference.
Sure.
So men and women are different, and it's not just based on physical; it's also based on mental. It's also based on like roles and responsibilities and abilities. So they're extremely different. So I believe that a woman has a specific role that should be in the household. She should be looking after the kids. She should be helping develop the kids. And a man is responsible for the financial aspects and raising them.
Okay, but what if a woman wants to build an empire instead of just sitting at home? I mean, which woman's built an...
What do you mean by
hey, hold on.
What do you mean by building an empire, though?
Let's back up here. What if? I don't know. Like I don't want to agree with you, but I agree with you.
Hold on. But women are not just
Come on, get in here.
Women are not just, I mean, okay. They're moms, they should be at home raising their kids, but a lot of women also work and they have businesses.
But like, do you think that a woman, so for example, let's say you got a woman, right? And she had a choice between working, right?
Look at us getting heated.
Have an opportunity have an opportunity to raise the kids. What do you think that generally a woman would choose?
No, for sure, raise the kids.
It depends. It depends. I think it depends.
Listen, I 100% raise your kids. Like obviously here, growing up, I mean, being here, there's the whole like nannies and this and that. Yes, raise your kids.
But even when I say choose, I'm actually being not honest, because I don't think women even should get a choice. Because in reality, let me be clear on this, like women are essentially don't have the ability to choose themselves. Women are easily controlled, easily manipulated, and easily influenced.
I agree. I agree.
So the data proves it. So if you look at, for example, transgender, right?
Right.
Do you know the vast majority of transgender are women? The vast majority.
So the women are trying to change.
To men, right? So if you look at it, for under 16s, it's almost 4 to 5. It's probably more now. And for over 16s, it's 1 to every 3. So what that demonstrates is when they're basically presenting transgender ideology or LGBTQ, women are being influenced more than anyone else. And also, I do believe there's religious basis behind it. So for example, in Islam, we have this idea that a man can marry a woman from other religions, but a woman can't. And the reason is because generally speaking, and again, the data shows as you were speaking about conversions, women tend to take the religion of their husband. They end up converting to that religion. And so it shows that women are amiable and women are easily controlled. And so in society, when you give women too much responsibility or too much of a say, that's where the society ends up redirecting towards problematic issues. If you look at, for example, a lot of the things that have happened in terms of the West, which we're seeing the actual collapse of the West right now in real time, there's a huge birth rate collapse because women aren't at home, they're working, they're becoming, as you said, want to build an empire. Women are not being parents, and so therefore children are becoming misguided, and so it's causing a huge collapse within society.
See, I don't understand why women get so upset when they think that when a man says, you know what, do your thing at home. Do you understand how hard it is to actually raise
100%. I mean, being
good
a mom,
kids, hold a house together, raise your husbands, because sometimes men need to be raised too.
Listen, being a mom
like
is
it's not
the hardest
easy.
job.
So I think when we hear that, we're like, you don't think we're capable? But in reality, you can't put a man and have him do that. You can't. Don't tell me a man can hold a house.
No.
Hold it down. I'm not.
Of course,
it's not the
women
prettiest.
should raise. Obviously, mothers should
with
raise
you,
their
okay?
kids. However, times have changed, and
Why?
women. I mean,
Is it for the better though?
I believe so. I think you can balance. You can balance your kids and
Look at
work.
society. So what?
You have to be independent. Like women, these days, times have changed. Like, let's say you're with a husband and he turns out to be not what you expected. And then you're, what are you going to do? Let's say you have no support, no family, what's the woman supposed to do? Go on and marry another guy for financial reasons?
I would say it's the opposite. If you look at society now, let's say that happened 1,000 years ago, a woman would be struggling.
Yeah, she would probably.
Now you've got basically so much support, so much benefit, so much scenario where women are helped. A woman splits with a man, she literally gets half of everything he had anyway. There's just so much benefit that's given to a woman that risk isn't really there. And so they're basically almost given a safety net, a huge safety net, that if they are going to be a wife and they split, or he leaves her out in the cold, even when there's a prenup, she'll still get half of it. So in reality, that's not the case. And when you say like things have changed, yes, they have, but it's for the worse. Because if you look at society, there's lack of belief in God. If you look at society, there's a collapse of family. If you look at society, no one's having children. So a society internally being destroyed, everybody's turning LGBTQ. If a society's internally being destroyed, how is that a good change?
But hey, I gotta say, men these days, if you go back years ago, those were men, they were men, just ready to hop on their horse and slay some.
I agree. I agree.
Nowadays,
I agree.
Men want to be women, and the women, honestly, I don't know, maybe, I guess with age, you don't go out much, but nowadays, when you're going out to dinners and we hear, from our single friends that they have to split the bill, and that does come.
So that I agree with that. That's weak. Like a man shouldn't be doing that. But in terms of like men becoming weaker, that's definitely happened. If you look at men not taking responsibility, that's happened for sure. And that's again a destruction of a man. Like a man needs to improve and be a man. But like a lot of this has happened to men and women intentionally, in my view. What's happened is it's caused the media. So if the media, what they did was they intentionally degraded men through social media, through TV, through various other things. So in the 70s, they did it with the black population. So what they did was they'd always make the black man look like a fool. They'd always make him dress up as a woman. And then they'd also incentivize women to be divorced because housing benefits. They were given better housing benefits. They were given better. So they were financially incentivized to split. And so that caused the destruction of the black population. They've done the exact same thing now with the white population. So if you look at it, women were basically told to go back to work. Women were told to become bosses, build empires. Women were told to do all of those things, right? Yeah. And that caused the destruction of society what happened is...
Well, say it. You have something to say back? Say it. Yeah, yeah.
I agree and disagree.
Yeah, but men, they are going through huge problems. You have to remember the biggest homelessness is amongst men. Men, the biggest suicide rates are happening amongst men. Exactly. So men are literally. So I do believe that none of these things should happen. You need to be strong and not go for it. But obviously, some people are weak and they've been broken through it. So men are in probably the weakest point ever. If you look at the data now, up to the age of 30, the vast majority of men are not even having a relationship. So
it's probably still living.
30% of men under the age of 30 have not had a relationship. So that shows you how bad it is for men.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, men need to take responsibility because they've given women too much power.
Yes.
But it is happening for sure. What was it you disagreed?
But that's what I mean. Like, that's what I mean where times have changed and some women need to be strong and be strong and independent. Like, for example, there's a lot of women that I know are single moms and they're out there working and providing for their child because the dad is a deadbeat or the family can't support her and her son, her and her kids. So
well, that's her building
that's what
her
I mean.
empire.
That's what I mean. Like it depends on the situation.
But then why is she
changed.
a single mom? Because there's a reason divorce rate is extremely high.
I mean, that's what I mean. Like it's different now. Like there's divorce rates are so high right now.
And who's causing most of the divorces?
Not women.
Yeah, I don't know. What are you trying to say?
It's not women.
The data shows it's clearly women.
Listen,
right?
the stories that I know, the men are not faithful.
Maybe in the UK. I don't know how it is out
but
here.
that's anecdotal because in reality, like the data shows women are the one who are, and by the way, when you say not faithful, again, the data shows, again, that the vast...
Bring us the data.
Yeah.
Show us the data.
Just go to my Twitter page. I literally wrote about all this stuff. But so this was a study done, and what it showed is that actually 20% of men are raising children who aren't their own, and they don't even know that they're own.
Sheesh.
So, and remember, that data has only come about...
Ladies, come on.
Exactly. And that data has only come about how? Because the woman was so confident that the result's going to go in her favor, that she signed an agreement to say, yeah, you can do the test on my child. So never mind what the real percentage is. Just imagine 20% is women were like, yeah, bruv, I'm going to ace this test. He ain't going to find out I've cheated on him. I'm going to do this test. And then you find out the kid's not yours. So imagine the real percentage is going to be extremely high.
Listen. Okay. Again, I agree with some of the things, but...
And so in Islam, just to bring it back to religion a bit, there's a reason why when it comes to divorce, for a man, it's a bit easier, and for a woman, it's a little bit harder. She can get a divorce, but there's a few extra steps she needs to take. Yeah. But this is the reason why, because if it's based on emotions, there would be a lot more divorces.
Oh yeah, with our emotions, I don't know. Personally speaking, I'm very emotional, so
You sound like an Andrew Tate fan now.
You do. That's what I mean. I agree with a lot of things.
I don't agree.
I do. But then when he gets all cocky and then the cigar in his mouth and it's like,
Listen, I'm an independent mother, and I work, and I
don't forget you're a wife.
And I'm a wife, and I think women should work. However, there should be a balance.
But
there should be a balance.
If you were given an option to not work, and your husband, as example, was bringing him back a significant amount,
please.
Which he does, but I still choose to.
So you still would work?
I still choose to work. Right. I want to show my children that, obviously I have 2 boys, but also these days, like I said, men, and you have 2 girls. Like, what would you want to teach them to just sit at home and depend on a man?
Yeah. I would teach my girls to basically I'd bring them up.
You just shat on me, girl. She's like, you sit at home. Do you want to teach your girls?
I'm just saying, because I have 2 boys. So it's different. And you have 2 girls. Okay, but listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Don't make me cry.
I believe in...
Listen, I find it very, very attractive and very how do you say,
for a woman to have her own
word,
just in case,
very motivational as a woman to stand and do her thing and not need a man and whatever. But
I still need my man, and I'm still very wife and motherly, and I don't feel like my kids are neglected. I'm with them all the time. You know what I mean?
Building her empire.
Where are they when you're
at school with me?
Oh, they're at school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
With me.
And then when I go home, I take them to the gym with me. So I don't feel, it depends. Again, it depends on the situation. When they were babies, yes, I was there and I was raising them, on my own. Not on my own.
Hold on. No, because when you so here you literally get, I think they've changed it now, but you get 45 days to have your baby and go back to work. Yeah. Which you did with Zeno.
Yeah.
Her youngest. So imagine getting a choice, like me, for example, I would never want to do that.
100%. I believe you should raise your child,
I have a 1-year-old. Yeah. If I left her all day.
No way.
Then
to leave her with a nanny,
also,
no way.
Your boys are older.
I agree. No, you have to raise your kids. But once they're older, once they go to university, once they go...
What are you doing still sitting at home by then? Yeah.
And it can, and it's necessarily not for, just to make money, just to... Be busy. And
because also I feel, and maybe you'll agree with me, when a woman, and maybe nowadays with men working remotely, are always at home or have the time, I feel like there's a lot, like it causes more chaos and fights when you're always in each other's face. And
not only that, eventually, like, you know, like I said, once your kids grow older, like you as a mother want a purpose. Like you're, you know, I don't know.
I agree. I agree with both.
So just like a couple of points, like the first thing is in terms of what you mentioned about her daughters, like in reality, like the aim for your daughters or your sons is to bring them up as what they should be for that 100%. Specific gender. And so, for example, what may happen is a risk. I'm not saying it will, maybe, you know, your situation may not be like that, is when you have a scenario where there's boys being brought up and then they're seeing their mother work, they psychologically accept that as the norm. And so then what'll happen is they may marry someone who may not be the best female or the best person for bringing his children up. Yeah. And so there's a huge risk in that regard. Furthermore, let's be clear, when you go to work, you get tired. So you're not going to have that kind of physical focus on your children as much as when you're at home. And so there's a lot of give and takes that you're having, because you're going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted after work. Depending on what the work is, you're going to be doing long hours. You're lucky that you finish at the same time. But obviously, if you're a teacher, I'm guessing there's a lot of marking that you got to do. So there's a lot of things that you're going to have to give up when it comes to the children's upbringing that would benefit them a lot more. So imagine you were home all the time and then you were able to give your full focus to your children. Your children would be elite. And that's what differentiates like an elite child to a lesser elite child. So again, I keep saying data, but like what it clearly shows is, if you look at the information, when it's a mum who stays at home, them children tend to do better when they're from the same kind of demographic.
I agree and disagree.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. No, I definitely like, you know, I want my boys to grow up and to be, you know, to have those values and them being men, and they have to.
Thank God that you married a good man, because then that would have been at least, you know, mashallah.
Yeah, no, like obviously I'm teaching them to be independent and they have to work and provide for their family, but at the same time, also to teach them that women have a choice. They can stay at home and be mothers, and they can work. That's just my opinion. True. Yeah, agree to disagree. See, we're going to get a lot of hate for that. But no.
I don't know.
Yeah. What keeps you grounded?
I don't know if I'm grounded. To be honest, right? That's probably the problem. Like I'm like very probably arrogant. I'm very like strong in my beliefs in the sense of.
You have to be.
Yeah. I don't think I'm like, I think probably that's one of my worst characteristics, is probably being humble. I probably don't think I'm that humble, but then I feel like you have to be like this, because if you show any kind of like weakness, they take advantage of you. Like a good example is, I said this yesterday when Gary Lineker got fired, that whenever you show weakness or you apologize, they'll take advantage of it. And so from that, I immediately learned that you can never show weakness. You got to just keep arguing, you got to keep smashing them, and you got to like not give any form of leeway. Whereas naturally, if someone makes a point, I'm like, okay, I see where you're coming from. But with like in the social media world, you can't really do that. Right. So I think that's like an important thing. That I don't know what keeps me grounded. Maybe I don't know. I don't think there is. I'm not very grounded, to be honest.
Good.
So I think like
go against the system.
With your field and what you're doing, like the political commentary, you have to be arrogant, and you have to, have you always been like that, or because of this you think you feel like you were more
I think I've gone worse and not I'm more like that anyway, but then when I look back, when I'm looking at how I am at home, I'm probably the same. Like I think, like, you know, when it comes to kids, we're speaking about children, I think your kids need to see the father as like the best thing ever, and they need to think that like this guy's never wrong. And so I think that's like an important characteristic to have. So like, for example, with my kids, I don't think till this day I've rarely ever told them off, right? Just like I tell them what to do and they do it. And I think that only happens through like being strong.
Right. Because they don't want to disappoint you, and they don't want,
having that as you,
little fear.
Respect, but that respect comes from arrogance. But maybe if I'm like, I'm not sure, like, I don't know, maybe I should have done it. It's a bit weak, and then, you know,
you lost them.
You lost the kids, you lost your family, they don't rate you as much. So
same thing as a teacher. If you walk into that classroom and they sense a little bit of like niceness or weak, they will take over.
I mean, that's kids even everyday life. I've learned to be, we grew up to be kind of like sensitive and, scared to stand up. But life taught us that you have to be
taught us.
You have to be strong, otherwise people will take advantage.
They will not take you serious. They will not listen to you. Yeah.
But you just train yourself. Like, for example, when I grew up, generally speaking, I was antisocial. Like, in the sense of not antisocial because I get along with people and I speak to them, but like, I find people boring. Yeah. So if I had a choice between spending time with people or reading a book, I'll read a book, right? Yeah, but that's something I've trained myself on to, like, go out and speak to people and go and do this and go and do that.
I feel attacked. Are we boring?
Hence this interview. Now, joking.
He chose us, not a book today. Oh, amazing. Well, in a world built on silencing us, your voice reminds us that speaking up is not just brave, it's necessary. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure talking.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, guys, really check him out.
Yeah,
it's amazing. We'll add
put your like socials and all that, and people will follow you. And thank you for being here. You want to end it?
Thank you for watching another episode of Hachi with us. Comment, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye. Welcome back to another. We have a special guest here, Sulaiman.
Edit that out, Dan.
Once it's edited, it's good. Okay.